this is our 10th episode. Did you realize this is kind of like a milestone for us?
I didn't. That's perfect.
Yeah, number 10. So it's good. We can look back on nine, well, eight of them, because really the first one was just us, and there's not a lot to learn from that episode. But we can look back on the eight and just reflect, and I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think for me, it's been just really cool to talk to such a wide variety of people, but B, it's really cool just to see some of the themes that arch over the conversations that we've had, and we're talking to completely different people from very different agencies and backgrounds, and just the concepts of leadership are very similar.
Yeah, I noticed the same exact thing. So there are two things that keep repeating in my mind, and I may have bounced this off of you, but do you have the same two things?
Well, definitely servant leadership seems to be one that keeps coming up.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
overarching. I'll call that overarching,
Yeah. But no,
but
I don't. Yeah.
so my the two things that I think come up, and God, I hope I don't forget one of them. But one of them for sure is uh doing so when you're asking your folks to do something, it wouldn't be something that you wouldn't be willing to do yourself. So basically walking the walk type thing. And doing that with humility and doing it sort of side by side. So I think that is one of the repeated themes. And the other one, oh my God, it's been such a long day.
Well, here I'll do a little comment on that one. Like, I think even for someone like when we talked to Matt Domiancic, like he never went into a leadership role per se. Like he was never a sergeant or a lieutenant or anything, but he was able to get through kind of on the wellness side with officers because he was such a sort of a hard charging, like he was willing to get out there and train, and do the things that the cops really looked up to, like his peers looked up to. So he was able to talk to them about things that they might have thought were a little like hippy dippy or whatever, because they saw that he did the things that they did, and he really had the same kind of drive that they did. So
Yeah, and he still does. So he's still out training and he's training firearms, he's training, physical fitness. He's doing lots of stuff that is not applicable necessarily to his current job, but it allows him to kind of still continue to see through the lens and interact and break down those barriers with the folks that he comes in contact with at the range or at the gym or in some of the scenario training and that kind of thing. So I think that's huge when your career takes you past that point of where maybe that training is the most applicable thing. I think it's still great to keep your toe dipped into it just for those reasons, to bridge that gap of wellness and to be sort of the ambassador of wellness. You know what I mean?
yeah. And from even a leadership role, like if I see a lieutenant in training that's just getting after it, like I have so much more respect for them because they're seeing what we're doing and they're like willing to go through that physical endeavor and put themselves out there and maybe not be the best at it, but that's putting their ego behind leading us basically.
Right. Doing it with humility. I think that's, yeah, exactly. So I remember the other thing is, I don't know how I can forget this, but a lot of our guests have been talking about taking care of their people, putting that first. So knowing that you have to empower your folks to put their own wellness and find out what their values are, and then allow that person to live those values on a daily basis so that they can do their job with the utmost ability and optimize their time at work. So they're not distracted by home life or whatever it is that's going on, they're not lethargic because they're not taking care of their bod. So putting your people first and I think that a lot of that comes down to recognizing not only your folks' value, but like recognizing when they're hurting or when they're straying from those values. Because when we are living that sort of slow degradation, it's really sometimes hard for us to say, hey, I need a little help or I need a little bit of time off. That's, the type of personality that is drawn to police work is not going to be super vocal when they're struggling. And so taking care of your people you become kind of like a, mama bear in some ways.
Yeah, and what I liked, I think it was Sergeant James said, like he got out there with his people a lot, and I think that that's important because you see their baseline, right? Like if you're just sitting in your office and you're not interacting with your people other than, taking their reports and doing whatever you do administratively, if you're not seeing how they're acting on the street, what their baseline is, like how are you going to know when they stray from that baseline? It
Right.
would be impossible, right?
Yeah, and that's purely looking at even just the job performance side of it, like you're saying, and I think that's combining the two things of getting out there, practicing what you preach, and then also, being kind of that, mama papa bear, making sure that folks are providing the community with the best service that they can. So that's awesome. I also, I don't think I told you that I was reading something today, and I saw this quote that was like, I'm just sharing this with you because we like nerd out on this stuff, but like be the kind of leader that people would just willingly and voluntarily follow. And I thought that was something that is so simple, but really like resonates with a lot of our guests. You want to embody the qualities that, even if it wasn't your job to be subordinate to them, that you would voluntarily, and we know people like that where it's like,
Right. Yeah.
oh, that person's going to that unit, and it's like I never really had an interest, but now I want to be with that person.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've gone to teams just because I know the people on them are like far beyond me and I want to learn from them. And, they've displayed these leadership qualities that I'd like to learn from. And so I think that's huge.
So in order to, like, I think recognize some of the things that we want to contribute to this podcast, I think it's important to note that we do have some community members that are going to be joining us to talk on the podcast. We have them scheduled because you and I have talked about, like, we want to hear everything from everyone. We want every point of view, not just within law enforcement. So if this podcast comes on your radar and you know some great community activist type folks who are open to conversation and have the same ambition to improve law enforcement and leadership in law enforcement, please put us in touch because we are really excited to talk with the folks from our community, but we don't want to be confined to that microcosm.
Even people that are leaders in their own communities, whether it has anything to do with law enforcement, just like good at the business that they've done or entrepreneur or anything like that, I think is important because we can learn lessons from all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of lessons, we have to say we've received an abundant number of emails would be an overstatement, but we did receive one that really struck us as interesting, and I appreciate it because this person took the time to talk about their experience in leadership and talk about their department, which we won't mention their department or their name or anything. But did you have some excerpts that you wanted to kind of like introduce to our anybody who's listening? Like,
Yeah, absolutely. So the things that jumped out for me were, he said, me personally, my career took off when I started acting like a leader and developing my leadership skills. Like you, I don't believe you need rank to be a leader, and my informal leadership led to promotion to sergeant, and I'm sitting fourth on the lieutenant's list. So I think that was a huge thing that he talked about that I think really resonates with what we've been talking about, right?
yeah, and I'm sort of getting the sentiment from there that he incurred leadership as just sort of his approach to the job. It's not like it was a goal of his necessarily. I don't know. I'm just kind of getting that tone that maybe he decided to act like a leader, and a byproduct of that was being placed into a position and fourth on the lieutenant's list and all that, to where people sort of recognize, hey, this guy's a standout individual, and he's got the character traits that we're looking for, or maybe he just got like 100 on the test and he's a total jabroni, but regardless, he had some really great things to say. What else did he talk about in there?
So let's see. Um, so actually something that's interesting that I think relates to a little bit of what we've been doing in the past couple months was that he talked about how this last year in 2020, that they saw that officers' health and well-being was a priority. So when gyms around them shut down, they held outdoor training sessions, they redesigned their gym twice, and started a resilience and wellness committee.
Isn't that just like in the first part of that, isn't it just incredible that it's taken so long for departments to start prioritizing like wellness? And
Mhm.
I don't even know how it became such an in vogue thing. I'm curious to see where that sort of sea change occurred, but it must have just been, the unfortunate number of suicides and things like that. And obviously a close look at use of force and determining physical wellness as well, and throwing decision making into that huge matrix and everything. But it boggles my mind that it has taken so long. But nevertheless, I'm glad that we have been thrust into a position to, at least from the physical standpoint, through our wellness unit, introduce the idea of like just creating a culture around wellness, like physical, specifically physical fitness.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, my guess why it's kind of becoming in vogue now is that back when in like 2016, during the Obama administration, they did like a recommendation for police officers for 21st century policing. And
Right.
there was different pillars, and wellness fell under like the sixth pillar. So it was, I don't know that they did that in any order, but it probably is the thing that people are checking the list, like, okay, we've got this. Oh yeah, well, officer wellness is probably pretty important too. I would put it near the top of the list because you want your officers to be happy and healthy, because then they will treat the community the way they're feeling, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's it but even like chicken egg, or maybe that's not the right analogy, but where, the fact that it ended up even on the radar of that, that 20th century or 21st century policing, which we've referred to, like we've done it through like grant proposals and things like that. So we've looked extensively at it, and it is, I mean, it has become such a huge priority. But like, I don't know how it got on the radar, but whoever did that, whatever mental health professional or team of people, they did the hard work to get it there, and I'm just excited that so many like this guy who emailed, so many people are gravitating towards wellness. And it is something that, um, I believe thus far, maybe you have a different impression, but our department, when we started introducing our physical fitness program, it was like I could feel the positive energy radiating for the first time in a really long time. Like people
Oh
were
yeah,
excited. Was that your kind of impression?
absolutely. I think maybe the way it came out, a lot of people were, I don't know, maybe it just feels like something that the department is doing for them and not for anyone else, just for them. And that might feel like a long, like hasn't been there for a while. I think also just cops in general, we are so physical, and being able to like relate to people through physicality is sort of an easier way into some of the mental health stuff, rather than, sit down and talk to them about the fact that they're probably going to go through some mental health issues when they're a cop, and let's talk about it.
Yeah. I was just doing some movement screenings today, and it just takes me back to the old like training days, because what starts as like a physical conversation or discussion of prior injury or little pains and things like that, or limitations, turns into more than that. And so you sort of develop this rapport with someone, and it just really is, it's a magical thing. I'm glad that we're able to do that. And yeah, it's something that we've done specifically for the officers, but if anyone's listening to this that's trying also to develop something similar in their department, I think a huge uh tactical approach was providing a wellness survey from our unit, and allowing the officers to speak for, or really employees, non-sworn as well, to speak up and let us know what their priorities were. And 60% of the people who answered the survey said that they would like to see physical fitness. In fact, that was the number one requested service, in terms of what the wellness unit could offer potentially to them. And so based on that, luckily a program that you and I had pitched well over a year ago was picked up. And so now here we are, just really just muddling through and trying to get some traction with it. And I mean, shit, I don't know. People can tell me otherwise, but I think it's going really well. I get a lot of positive emails every day from people who are just like, thanks for doing this, or what the hell is this all about? And even a what the hell is this all about? That's something. That's engagement. That's distracting someone from something negative that's going on at the job, and presenting something positive that they're somewhat excited about, if not slightly skeptical. So,
Yeah. And actually, I was surprised of how many like command staff people were interested in being
yeah.
like involved and getting assessments and talking to us about, their goals and stuff. I think that that's huge. If anyone's listening and doing something similar, like getting the buy-in of a command staff, or maybe someone on command staff that it would be super obvious if they started getting into physical fitness and nutrition and wellness, and that just physical representation of losing weight or being more active and showing your troops that you're really behind it. I think that's huge. So I was very pleasantly surprised with that.
Yeah. So you are now back on the street, and I'll just use that as a vague umbrella term. But have you talked to anyone like in your on your watch that's like taken note of the fitness program, and what are their thoughts behind it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people are really excited, and they think it's huge and it's something that we need. I was talking to a guy the other day, and he was saying how kind of his philosophy. He listens to Jocko, and Jocko was saying something about people need to be spending 10% of their time that they work training something, and he tries to use that philosophy in how he plans out his work week and how much he trains, and at a bare minimum. So I thought that was kind of cool. And but just I haven't heard a single negative about it.
That's good, because the thing is, and when you roll out anything new, especially in like something like a police department where everyone has kind of a strong personality, they I think that I'm always expecting, as you know, I'm always expecting the resistance, and I want, because I don't want to be caught off guard when it occurs. And so, just it hasn't been, and not to keep in belaboring this point, but I'm just pumped because even just the people I've interacted with through the program, they feel like the department's doing something for them, and that's all we want. We want them to feel like, hey, we're taking note, we're listening to what you're saying, and we're trying to meet the need.
Well, yeah, and at the end of the day, it's voluntary, right? It's not something that we're saying you have to meet this, you have to do this, or you have to do that in order to meet some standard. It's a voluntary program, and it is absolutely there just for them to take advantage of. So I think that that's probably one of the keys of why people like it. And nobody's telling them what to do, but they're encouraging them and giving them some ideas of how to do it.
Yeah. So what else? Like what else is going on our radar?
Well, let me ask you this. Is there anything from like the guests we've talked to, or any of the subjects we've covered in the podcast, that has motivated you to do anything different in your day-to-day life?
No, I'm just going about it the yes. So yes, I think probably you're the same way, but I'm one of those people who is reluctant to reach out, and if I need something, I'm kind of in a unique situation, as you know, and so there are definitely some hard times in terms of like my personal life. My husband is away from military training and has been for a while, and so having the baby, working and all that stuff, that's just, that's my everyday, and it's fine day to day. I think sometimes though it gets to feel a little bit overwhelming. And so it's good to know that I can reach out to people, and even if it's just kind of like blow off a little bit of steam, or reach out for, help or a babysitter if I need it, and try not to feel too guilty about stuff like that. So for sure, I have learned that if I want to practice what I preach in terms of diffusing that stigma of just like, nope, I can conquer everything, I'm just gonna like pack it deep down. No, just like incrementally let off that steam. And I think the other one too is the going back to the practice what you preach, and displaying what you believe is the appropriate character traits of a leader. I am I am a grasshopper novice in so many ways, and especially leadership. And we've had so many repeated themes about getting out there and doing what it is that you say your folks should do. And with a little bit of a push from you and a gi, I have committed myself to training, BJJ and making that a priority every week. Even though sometimes I'd rather be lifting weights or doing something that I'm comfortable with and something that I enjoy and I know that I can just go and enjoy. It's important to challenge myself, even if it does feel somewhat like a little bit daunting from time to time. But I know that'll only grow into a real love for the sport and an appreciation for that learning curve that occurs basically for a lifetime. So
Mhm.
that's definitely something that I've been working on.
Yeah, that
How about you?
well, I'd say that practice what you preach and just being the best at what you find yourself in. So, you know, getting transferred back to my street
Mm,
unit is great. I actually really love the people that I work with. I still really love working on the street. But like, how can I be the best? Like, I am certainly not the best shot, and I again, sort of your influence as well, just being able to go out to the range and saying like, I need to dedicate at least, you know, a couple days a month or get out. I mean, that is far more than I was doing. Just get out there and practice different techniques, see what works best for me, incorporate some movement, incorporate things that I might see in a real life scenario, and just being better at all the little things, even being better at knowing our policy better, like, or making sure my reports are as good as they could be. It's taking, the little tidbits from people I work with who are really good at investigations, those types of things. I'm really trying to soak in as much as I can and be the best that I can in whatever position I find myself in.
What a great question that was. And I think like at least for me, you said it the other day when we were recording, but like I I agree with you in that in everything I do, I never feel like quite up to par. I'm always just looking at the people that are really excelling and I'm just trying to whatever mojo they got going on, I want a piece of that. And so I think yeah, I think like that's what you talk about the growth mindset and everything. And it's just it's I don't even know if it's a conscious thing. We're definitely not trying to like toot our own horns or anything like that. I think it's just I just have anyone who's seen me at the range knows I have a shit ton of work to do. So, you encouraging me to go to BJJ, me encouraging you to meet me at the range, and I think the more people we can kind of pull or push along, however you want to phrase it, to come join that is only going to benefit us because it holds ourselves accountable and holds them accountable. And it's just a great way to kind of bond with some folks that is work related but not stressful necessarily.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's one of those things you see other people doing it and you're like, okay, I haven't done that in a while. So I think it's time I got there, or, even just having that camaraderie and getting out somewhere, especially after this year where we've been cooped up so much and there hasn't been as much training because of, physical restrictions on COVID, like just doing those little things that we still can do. I think is huge for people. And again, going back to mental health, it's huge for your mental health. It's huge for my mental health to be able to roll around with sweaty guys.
your your fiance included.
Yeah.
um so one of the things I was just going to tell you this when we were talking on the phone earlier, how often do you think we talk a day? Probably 1 to 12 times, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
1 to 100,
Yeah, it's a
somewhere.
lot. We're in constant communicado. But one of the things that I forgot to tell you earlier was I was reading this thing. I think Effective Fitness put it out. Do you remember that like $1 million giveaway thing? So I signed up for that, and probably people who watch this probably signed up for the same thing. But it's essentially to implement a physical fitness program at your department. And even though a lot of what they have offered is stuff that we have already implemented, it don't hurt to get other people on board with what you're doing. So anyway, I was just reading through some of their stuff, and one of the cool things that they talk about because you're a neuroscience nerd, is implementing like memory training into your when you're in a sympathetic response, nervous system response to training. So it's you're primed at that time to really challenge your short-term memory. And so at the beginning of a workout, for instance, showing someone a license plate, and then at the end of a workout, getting them to try to recite the license plate from memory or name, date of birth, that type of thing. So I was really intrigued by that because I haven't done that. I've done things like doing math problems, but that's more like cognitive processing type thing. But I thought, man, we need to do that either next time at the range or
Yeah.
maybe like after 2 minutes of rolling or something like that. I think would be really cool.
Oh, I love that. They actually did something like that in, I want to say it was the Tough Mudder that I did in like 2019, maybe.
Oh yeah, with your
Yeah.
squad.
Yeah. You start a run or you start like a carry or something, and they show you something you're supposed to remember. And then by the end, if you can say it, you don't have to do burpees. I can't remember exactly, but I failed. But, um, like pretty
That
much.
is, look at my face. It is literally not surprised. You have the worst memory, especially if it was like the name of someone, even if it was a name of maybe a family member of yours. I feel like you would still struggle. It's not even like, it's not your, it's nothing, nothing's wrong with you up top here. It's just, I don't know. Like,
Yeah, it's terrible. I have a couple people that are really good with that, and I'll be like, "Hey," I'll give them a text like, "I know I've seen this person a million times, but what's the name of that guy that is always there on Tuesday and he's got a mustache?"
what they're like, Callie? Dude, one of the greatest moments in our friendship is when I finally stopped pretending that I hadn't heard the story like twice that day already. When I because you would get so excited about it was usually like an article that you'd read or some training thing or something cool that like happened to someone else. Like you're always excited for other people. So you would tell me this stuff like multiple times in one 24-hour period. And I finally got to a point in our friendship where I felt comfortable enough not acting surprised and just being like, dude, yeah, you told me that like at 2 o'clock today. Like,
Yeah, I've started prefacing everything with, "I don't know if I've told you this, but
yes.
if I told you this, you can stop me right now."
Yeah, yeah, that's true, which is a good disclaimer for you.
To be fair, I've had multiple TBIs, so,
Yeah, so
or
that
concussions, or I don't know where on the scale they land,
no,
but
you absolutely get we is handicap the right word? You get a pass, a buy for that, definitely. But yeah, so yeah, the memory stuff I think would be good because it still can as you, I mean, look, I'm not a neuroscientist, but I think like you can still train those synapses, right? It can't
oh,
be,
absolutely.
it's just
Yeah.
it's just wires.
Well, it's funny that you say that because our guest, I believe, next week is the author of a book that looks at neuroscience and how it can assist in training with law enforcement.
Is it funny or was I strategically lobbing that to you? Okay, that was purely coincidental. So yeah. So what is his last name again?
Malpass,
Malpass, that's right.
yeah, Mike Malpass. And I don't know where I came across the book, but it is definitely one that, and we'll talk about it next week, but I would and I have been recommending. In fact, I even bought it for people in our DT department, just like, take this book, read it,
Right.
take this book, read it,
And
I just,
in pure Lexi fashion too, I've looked at the copy that you're reading because you do this for me, which is basically underline, circle, highlight, write notes in the column and everything. But it's very like beautiful mind-esque. Like Lexi's just like, scribbled chicken scratch on the side of some random thought she's having. But it's good because it helps kind of steer me towards what is significant.
well, and if you can read my handwriting, then, you know
No,
what's going on.
I can't. I would just resort to the book. I just disregard all of that. Yeah, so that's exciting. I'm really excited to have him on. I think that'll be a good kind of I don't know, mix it up a little bit and talk a little bit about some nerdy stuff as opposed to just wellness and tactics and that kind of thing. Because I think the neuroscience obviously plays a role, but when you throw in science, you definitely can make an argument for things. Whenever you throw in the economics of things or the science of things, that's an automatic, like, the ears perk up of the people in charge, you know?
Oh, absolutely. And I think even on an individual level, like you may go through a really stressful call and be like, why in the fuck did I do that? Like, that's so outside of my realm of like usual, you know, way of handling things. But if you understand how our body reacts in a stressful situation and all those little sciencey things, I think it's easier to break that down of like, okay, maybe I just need to train that type of situation more or think through it and really know how I can get into the cognitive space. But I think so even on an individual level, understanding the science of like, you're not just a dumbass, you know, you had something happen and your physiological like normalities of the human being happened.
Mhm.
So you have to just figure out how to kind of train in that space.
Yeah, it takes, I think, it takes the emotion out of it, and it takes, like, that, like you said, "I'm a dumbass," "I'm never gonna be anyone, I'm a loser." No, it takes that emotion out, and it's like, "No, you just need some good training," and not just like, we're not just gonna say train, but here's specifically in terms of your brain, your cognitive decision making or whatever it is, like, here are the tools to get you there. It's not like, we'll just leave it up to you to just try to figure it out.
Yeah. And, I just think it's huge to absorb those types of things. And, I think this coming month, we've got some really awesome nerds that are going to be on the podcast to talk about not only neuroscience, but nutrition, and, how that relates to law enforcement and some other really cool guests. And I'm super excited for our lineup.
Yeah, definitely. And also, me personally, pumped to talk to the coaches from our local community and hear what's going on with the public perception as it stands now. And talk about what the kids' perception that they work with and how they navigate that, because it's got to be tough. Everyone draws from their own experience with law enforcement, and yet, we're talking about coaches who are extremely reasonable, rational folks who understand that the greater good of law enforcement is really out there to serve the community. So
Yeah.
how do we navigate, our personal experiences and those that we see in the media with, the goal of law enforcement, and are they meeting the challenge? Are they
Yeah.
really living up to our service to community? So that's, I mean, that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, and not to get too into because that'll be about a month out that we talk to them, but not to give too much away. But one of the coaches, Coach Rogers, he has this whole philosophy of positive deposits, and he's talked a lot to me about it. And one of the things was like, how cool would it be as an officer in uniform to just buy a cup of coffee for the kid that's behind you, especially someone who maybe looks like someone who's not really vibing with you or whatever, or like for whatever reason may not like officers, like just do these little positive deposits every day and see how that, I mean, that person may remember it for the rest of their lives, and I know that that has been something I've been trying to do. Like I was on patrol the other day and a kid had his car stalled out in the middle of the intersection, and we got out of our patrol car, helped him push it to the gas station, and then bought him gas. And the look on his face was just like, am I being punked right now? Like, is there cameras? Like what, but I think that those little positive deposits, he may not remember that. It may not be a significant moment in his life, but it may be, it
Mhm.
may be that the next time he sees somebody in uniform, he thinks twice about like, and I'm assuming I don't know anything about what this kid thinks about law enforcement, but it's just those little positive things we can do when we're not like on a call. And I think people listening to this, if I can encourage them to like be intentional with that, like don't just wait for it to happen, but
Mhm.
like maybe like put a little money away every month, and that's like your good deed fund, and look for opportunities to like, oh, this person looks like they could use a cup of coffee or socks or something, like just those little things that could maybe make a difference in that person's life on that day, and be intentional about it.
Yeah, I think, that's, and that the thing is, what you did is, it's a great thing, and hopefully that individual remembers that. But that's not like that crazy. Like, police, at least on our department, that's not unusual.
No.
But you are not going to read about that. You're not going to see it on the news. So that's why in some ways it's a struggle to get the positive PR out there. I mean, certainly there's negative PR for a reason in certain instances, but it's up to us to impact the individual to create, whatever kind of butterfly effect is
Yeah.
possible to, you know what I mean? Just it's like it might be the harder fight, but it's kind of like, look, it's doesn't mean it's insurmountable, and it doesn't mean it's not worth it. So I'm with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah. And looking back at our conversation with Roselle, I think he's someone who intentionally goes out of his way to do things like that. And, and we can't do it for PR. That's, like we have to do it from a place that's like, this might make a difference in this person's life. But honestly, like it made me feel good.
Yep.
Like it made me feel like, hey, tonight was a win. Put that
Yep.
in the W column. Like
Mhm.
that felt good. And it's, days don't always feel great after certain things that we see. So like having the moment to like stop and do that feels great for me for like just a selfish reason.
Yeah, surprising people with kindness is like cool. And Roselle, shit, I mean, he became a cop. And I'm sorry, maybe people who are just not just, but people who are um civilians, like civilians and in all different types of professions, they touch lives. Officers are blessed with an incredible ability to have a lot of touch points.
Mm-hmm.
We like when you put on a uniform, you can it in some ways it creates a barrier for some people, but other people it really breaks down the barrier. You can find an excuse, a positive excuse to touch everyone you come in contact with, which is an incredible cool like superpower, and so just like you were saying, like we have all these touch points with strangers, people we'll never see again, people and then people we see all the time.
Yeah.
But I still think that's why you and I love the job, because it's so
Mm-hmm.
cool. Not only do you have these bizarre conversations with people at like
Yeah.
2 o'clock in the morning about like, so tell me the first time you ever used heroin, and it's so like you'll have conversations like that, and then you'll maybe can circle it around to, here is my cell phone number, text me whenever you want a ride to detox or you want to get clean or whatever. So these,
Yeah.
the fact that we have that superpower is just incredible, because it's like I feel so blessed that we have a career that enables that, because I can't imagine trying to do that in, out of uniform. It's difficult. Like I feel like, you know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. It just gives you an excuse to break that
Sure.
barrier, Do you remember I think I was riding with you that night. We arrested a kid and he was in the back and he started talking about neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, what? You're my best friend now. And I mean, I had lots of encounters with him and I even bought him a book on brain science and stuff just because I thought it was
He
so
was,
cool.
if I recall, he was also like an incredible artist, was he not?
No, I think that was a different
Different
guy.
guy. Okay,
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
guy. Just different guy, different brain. Okay. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, isn't that so neat? Even I mean, you and I have dealt with so many people that have impressed me, even people who um are you know, they have problems. They have serious problems, and the police are not contacting them because, uh like we have a legal authority to be there. Let's just say they're doing really bad things. But
Mhm.
sometimes when you get talking to them, you're just like you're just you you relate to them on a level, but you have to dig a little bit for that. And hopefully it'll be a memorable experience for them in that, yeah, I had to go to jail tonight because of my actions. However, I got to know these cops. They were normal people. They treated me like a human being. And you kind of you try to like get to know someone as a person, see what
Yeah.
drives them.
And I think if anyone listening to this is an officer, I'd say, try to do that. Like, even if you've arrested, even if you had to fight with the person, like I've had super constructive conversations with people after having to struggle with them to arrest them,
Hmm.
but it's just because I can compartmentalize, like, okay, that was that moment. Now we're on to the next moment. And what, I'm not mad at, like, of course I wish you wouldn't have done that. And I'll explain to them why, it's dangerous for you, it's dangerous for me. Let's not do that next time. But, having that conversation of like, you know, what makes you tick, what, just asking
Hmm.
these probing questions that, I mean, I think it makes them, I would hope it makes them feel like, we're concerned with more than just the incident that happened in that day, you
Yeah.
know?
I mean, absolutely. And two things on that is like the number of people who, after have taken the time to really get to know them after using force or something like that, because of it being necessary, the number of people who have apologized because they now know me as a person and I now know them. And it's,
Mhm.
you know, and then the other aspect of that is when you deal with difficult situations day in and day out, you have this you sort of create this barrier, and you try not to interact with the people on an emotional level, and it's purely self-preservation. And I think that we develop this exterior, and if you've dealt with a cop and you were like, that cop's a real dick, like lots of people have had that interaction. There is the chance that, just from our perspective, my perspective is that that cop has put up with a lot of shit in their career, and if they could choose, they would not be a dick. But it's sometimes it's a self-preservation thing. It's not That is not a good excuse, it's not a good reason for that behavior. But I feel like if we can get ahead of that curve and sort of remind ourselves that, hey, when we can have these conversations, when somebody is lucid enough or they're able to have those conversations on a human level, it does tie you back into, hey, w- you know I don't want every negative interaction to turn out like this. Um I want to feel connection to the people I'm serving.
Mhm.
And I think that's what it comes down to, is maintain the connection with the people you're serving. But if it just becomes this very clinical deal, then then you can become that dick cop.
Oh, absolutely. And some of the best cops that I look up to that have been doing their same job in the same beat for, 20 plus years, they do that. And then I have people come up to me on the street all the time and say, like, tell this officer, hey, I'm doing good. Like, I'm not getting in trouble anymore. Like, I want him to know. And it's because he took the time to like make that relationship. And they would, people have told me, I'm thinking of one particular officer,
Hmm.
but he used to arrest me all the time, but he was always cool with me and he'd be fair. And I want him to know that I'm doing good. Can you please tell him? And it's like that relationship doesn't come by accident, you know?
Yep, like you said, it's intentional. And I know the particular guy that you're talking about, and I think it speaks to the fact that, his interaction with the community and just how empathetic and sort of human he maintained, like his humanity he's maintained, has led to his longevity in his work in patrol. It's like
Mhm.
he's been there for a long time and he maintains a certain amount of enthusiasm. And it could be that he's an anomaly, maybe he's just an outlier, but I would like to think that mindset, that connection mindset, that not just cops but everyone desires connection, that is what has provided him not only like biological longevity, because he's not a young guy, but it's also provided him that career longevity.
Yeah. And I think, again, you have to be intentional about it. Like, I think about our conversation with Craig, from Bellevue, and
Hmm.
how, he said, I'm an introvert by nature. Like, it took him to like push himself to start getting out of his car and talking. And he started with kids because kids were a lot easier to talk to. And then he worked his way up to adults. And, like, that's an intentional act. Like, you can't just say, well, I'm not good at it, so I'm not even going to try.
No, sometimes you got to start with cats. That's what I did. Start with kittens if you have to. Start with something that doesn't talk back, and then you build to children, adolescents, etc. So good for him. I mean, that's a great, working outside his comfort zone, and that's a testament to a true leader, in my opinion.
Oh, I 100% agree. And it goes to you doing BJJ. Like, that's not your comfort zone, And I mean, I'll tell you, when I started, it wasn't my comfort zone at all. Like, I mean, being especially usually training with guys and they're all bigger than me and stronger than me, like always being dominated feels like the shittiest thing ever. Like, will I ever get to the point where I can not feel like this? And then like incrementally you do, and then you actually go with someone who's your size and you're like, oh, okay, like I got it, and then you realize you don't got it, and then you realize you do, and it's this roller coaster. But I think it's again, it's just pushing yourself into those moments where you feel a little uncomfortable, and that's where the growth happens.
Yeah, and you know what? It's a safe environment. It's not like nobody's there to like kill me. It's like everybody just wants to see you succeed eventually, and earn it. And I think that that's fantastic. So in terms of getting to the point where I feel confident, I'm going to take your word for it. I'm just going to, put one foot in front of the other and keep going. And I thank you for urging me to do so and holding me accountable to that, because it's like I do really enjoy it. I
Yeah,
really do, and I love my new PJs, so thank you.
you're welcome.
I think though that this has rounded out a pretty good conversation.
Yeah, and I hope people listening are enjoying what we've put out so far. I mean, 10 episodes is great, and I know that I couldn't do it without you, Callie. So I'm super appreciative of you being my co-host.
Oh
And
yeah, well it'd be super weird if you were just talking to no one. Which is what I do on a daily basis, by the way, in this house.
you're talking to your baby. I mean,
Yeah, and I also laugh at my own jokes. It's not unusual to like not it's
at
not
all.
strange because you've seen it at work. I mean,
I'll have to say for our listeners, Callie was the queen of sitting in roll call and telling the worst joke you've ever heard, and then laughing hysterically until everybody was laughing with her. Not necessarily with her at the joke, but with her because she was laughing at her own joke.
Yeah, what is it? 2:30? I got a dentist appointment. It's a classic. Well, good. Well, I think we should end on that positive dad joke moment.
Yeah, and I would actually like to say if people are following us, if they've enjoyed our content, do us a favor and just subscribe wherever you're watching it. If you watch on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. If you hit the little bell icon, then it'll notify you when we come up with new content. If you listen on iTunes, subscribe there, leave us a comment. We really want to start interacting with people that are listening. Send us an email like the one we kind of touched on earlier. We want to hear what people's success stories in leadership are. We want to hear the struggles. We want to hear what you're thinking about our content. If there's somebody or a topic you'd like us to cover, or somebody you'd like us to speak to, please let us know and we'll do our best. But we really want to start getting that community group together. So
Yeah, oh man, the good stuff. We just want to share ideas and learn from everybody else. And we know what we're doing in terms of the technical aspect of recording, but we don't know anything else. We are sponges when it comes to leadership. So I'm super excited. I hope someone actually does take us up on that. And then if you have some recommendations for a backdrop, let me know. Because
I think,
clearly
Kelly, you need a fleece cat blanket.
fleece cat blanket. What about the wolf howling at the moon? One face is like profile and one is like straight on, like no.
And with a big like moon in the background. I think that's great.
Fuck yeah. I hope if someone has one of those just laying around from the 80s and is willing to part with it, email me because you got your first bidder here. So
You have someone watching that's like, I just bought this yesterday. What does she mean?
I know that person's like, what is she talking about? Okay. I'm sorry. Thank you for watching. All right, Lexi, we'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye, Callie.
Bye.